All right. Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us from wherever you are in the world today. I hope you are continuing to remain safe and well. And thank you very much for taking the time to be with us. All right. So by way of introduction, my name is Royston Lobo, and I'm one of the meetup leaders for the online MuleSoft meetup group. I have the privilege of leading this group along with my fellow leaders, Manik, Angel, and Sandeep. And we operate across all time zones around the world. So this is a time zone that's more friendly towards Asia and Australia and New Zealand. So if you are in those regions, thank you very much for joining us. But I know that we have some people from India who are working on very early for this. And we also have some people from America who are burning the midnight oil joining here as well today. So thank you very much. We do have an online group on meetup.mulesoft.com. So if you join that group, you'll be notified about all future events that we hold as well. Just some guidelines for today. Many of you are already using the chat, so thank you very much for doing that. You can use that for just any discussions for today. I do have a link that's displayed on the top of the screen for any questions for Susmit today. So please use that link for any actual questions. And we'll be using that link to ask the questions to Susmit during the session. All the slides and recordings from today will be shared within 24 hours on the event page. So just bookmark that page and come back to it tomorrow if you need any of the details. All right, so here's the plan for today. We'll kick off with some announcements, things that are important and relevant for people in the community to know at this point in time. And then we'll pass the stage over to Susmit, who'll be giving us a presentation on his work on custom metrics and performance monitoring with a demo as well. So Susmit has put in a lot of effort into this. So we're looking forward to seeing this session today. All right. So moving over to some announcements. The first announcement I wanted to share with you all is that Anypoint Studio 7.10 has been released in the last few weeks. There are some notes on screen as to what has been improved. So if you are a Studio 7 user, you should have many reasons now to upgrade to the latest version of Studio. So if you haven't yet done your upgrade, feel free to do that potentially while the session's running, but maybe afterwards as well. The next announcement on the product side is that Anypoint Exchange has had a July release, and there have been some enhancements made primarily on the backend API calls available. So there are 2 new API versions available for the platform APIs. So Exchange API version 2 and the Maven API version 3. And the Anypoint CLI has also been enhanced to work with these new APIs as well. So if you are someone who is using the Exchange APIs in your build pipelines, feel free to review the release notes from this release in order to understand if you need to change anything or enhance the way you do your work. All right, moving over to some events. So for the people who are based in Asia, many of you might have known that the MuleSoft Summit was actually held on Tuesday this week. So it is now in the past. However, if you didn't get a chance to catch the content or want to rewatch all of it, it is now available on demand, potentially, I think, until the end of this week. So there's a link on the screen, and I'll pop it in the chat soon as well. I'm also presenting at the Asia Summit, so if you want to watch me present, there is an option for you to do that as well. There's also a number of different customers in Asia who have had a chance to speak at this one, including Hong Kong Broadband and the INSEAD group as well. So yeah, hopefully you get some value out of that one. Over to the meetups. So we already know that you as the audience are aware of how good meetups can be, but I do want to share that there are many more meetups coming up during the rest of August. Just a few key callouts. The Women Who Mule meetup group is meeting later this month, as well as 2-3 days ago. We've also got our first meetups coming up in Rotterdam in the Netherlands and in Bitola as well later this month. So while many of these are virtual, you can join them from wherever you are in the world. We look forward to a time in the future when we can actually go back to in-person meetups so that you guys can see each other in person. If you want to be notified about upcoming events, the links on this slide will take you to the best place to register for those. I do want to call out that there is a call for participants and contributors for industry meetup groups. So as you may know, historically, we have done meetups based on location or topic. So for example, we might have had the Mumbai meetup group or the Sydney meetup group. We are looking to bring together people who are interested in a particular industry. For example, healthcare or public sector. And in order to make this happen, we need people to contribute to this. And so if you're interested in either starting a group or speaking at an event and sharing your expertise, we're looking for people to contribute. Use the details on the screen. So there is a form, the link to which I will share on the slides. And if you're very, very eager to contribute, feel free to email Mariana at the email address that you see on screen right now. As usual, if you are a MuleSoft mentor and ambassador, this is a great way to make sure you meet your commitments. And it's also a great way to be recognized in the community for your expertise. Just a key call out for people in this time zone. The Women Who Mule meetup is going to have a JPAC, so that's Japan and Asia Pacific launch later this month. It's at 11 a.m. Sydney time on the 25th of August. And the RSVP link is on screen. For context, the Women Who Mule meetup group is primarily for the women who are involved in the MuleSoft community. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a technical topic. It's just a great way for the women in our community to find other women who are also passionate in this space and active. And we have a number of both MuleSoft and customer speakers at the next event on the 25th. All right. For those of you who are new to the Friends of Mac series, these are videos covering a range of topics in a very digestible format. We introduce new videos into the Friends of Mac series every month. And there's also now an opportunity for external contributors to create videos as well. However, I do want to call out that there are some new videos that have been launched in July. So those are the ones that are listed on the left. All the links are again going to be on the slide, which I will share later today. So feel free to browse and watch any of them that are of interest. And if you find them useful, please share them with your team at work as well, so that everyone can get the benefit of the knowledge that's been created over here. There's a number of videos that have been created around API Community Manager. So if that is something of interest to you, feel free to watch those. All right, that concludes our announcements for today. So I would like to pass the stage over to Susmit. So just as a prelude, Susmit is a recently anointed MuleSoft mentor. So congratulations, Susmit, in advance for your recent recognition in the community. He is no stranger to this group as well. He presented about a year ago on, I think, the custom logging. And so we are very happy to have him back on a topic that very few people know a lot about. And so it's going to be a great opportunity to learn from Susmit on this one. So with that, I'll stop sharing. And Susmit, feel free to take it away.
Sure. Yeah, thanks, Royston, for the introduction. I'll share my screen so I can share the presentation slides. I hope all of you are able to see my screen and the deck is visible.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, thanks everyone for joining the virtual meetup from different parts of the world. Today, we are going to discuss about the custom metrics, which is one of the features available as part of the Anypoint monitoring offering from MuleSoft. And we're going to showcase a demo using custom metrics to see it in action. So this is a slide that is about me. I'm a solution architect based out of Sydney. I work for a government department. I've got 13 years of experience working in different integration product suites and open source frameworks. Currently, I'm responsible for integration architectures and strategy for my organization. And I'm leading the initiative of promoting API adoption across different business units. We use MuleSoft as our primary integration platform, and I work very closely with the MuleSoft professional services team. Moving on to the agenda for today, we will first have an introduction to what are metrics and what are custom metrics. We'll see an example of custom metrics. We'll go through the different use cases to understand where it fits in, how you can leverage custom metrics. Then we'll go through endpoint monitoring offering from MuleSoft and see where custom metrics fits into that offering. And we'll also see how we can configure the custom metrics connector through which we can use custom metrics feature provided by MuleSoft. We'll also see how we can configure different types of dashboards to view the custom metrics data that we're going to publish into endpoint monitoring through custom metrics connectors. And then we'll actually see the demo to see custom metrics in action. And finally, we'll go into the question answer session. Okay. So this is just an introduction to what is custom metrics. So before we jump into custom metrics, we need to understand what is a metric. A metric is basically a quantifiable measure. We may want to simply count the number of times something happens. So that's something we can call a metric, like the number of times the user visits the website, for example. That's a metric data. A custom metric is basically defined by the users, as the word custom suggests. And it is designed to actually accurately measure a specific subject of interest or a specific data that is defined by the user. So contrary to that, we have standard metrics, which is provided out of the box and available out of the box, but something that the users define, we'd call them custom metrics. Basically, it has a business context to it. And metrics data, basically custom metrics data. In fact, so people who are familiar with the BI analytics or data warehousing, they're very familiar with the word dimensions and facts. A fact is actually a quantitative piece of information. It's just a measure of something like a sale or a number of users. Usually the values of facts are numerical, while dimensions are actually the attributes that defines the fact. Basically, it's if you are capturing metrics data against an object, the different attributes of that object would be something we would call dimensions, like a description of a product being sold or the website that the users are trying to access. So this is all about metric and custom metric, what it is. Okay, so this is an example of custom metrics. So for example, we want to capture the sales metrics. And for a sales order or a sales attribute, we can define dimensions like the store name, locality from which the sales is made, the date of purchase, and the product. So these are different dimensions which describes the type of sale. But the quantifiable entities are the number of items which are being sold or the total price which impacts the revenue, right? So these are the actual facts which are, you can see these are actually numerical data. So the facts are numerical data, while the dimensions are basically the attributes of that data. And you can see the matrix data on the right-hand side. So these are the examples of the matrix data. And this is an example of custom metrics because this is specific to a certain business context, the particular sales, for example. Okay, so these are different use cases of custom metrics. So in a SaaS world, we may want to capture metrics that indicates the churn rate, the number of subscribers who are discontinuing a subscription. That's something we can consolidate and view as a metric. For human resources, retention rate, number of employees who remains with an organization over a period of time, that's something we can collect as a metric. For web traffic sources, if we want to collect that metric, we can do so. That's another example of custom metrics. We can also measure the key performance indicators, the resource utilization, so the number of events being processed. These are KPI indicators. We can collect that metrics. That is also something we can categorize as metrics data. For my organization, how custom metrics helped us was that we were able to capture some of the non-functional requirements, because I work for a government organization where we use a lot of legacy systems, and the NFRs are most of the time not available. No one knows the NFRs. If we ask how many transactions would happen for a particular business scenario, for a certain business process, no one would be able to answer. So when we actually enable the integration flows, and then we capture the metrics data and visualize those metrics data through different dashboards, then we are able to capture that information, and that helps us define the acceptance criteria and different NFRs for the legacy system. So that really helped us in our case. So these are the different use cases of custom metrics. Okay, so now we'll discuss about anypoint monitoring, because custom metrics is one of the features available as part of the anypoint monitoring offering from MuleSoft. So anypoint monitoring provides an end-to-end visibility into the Mule applications. So when we deploy Mule applications into Mule runtime, we want to have visibility into the application in terms of what are the resource utilizations, what are the performance metrics, how many events it's processing, how many requests are being processed, how many outbound calls are being made. We want to capture the logs to do troubleshooting. We want to do alerting. Functional monitoring is also provided as one of the features of anypoint monitoring. It helps us execute some of the functional use cases periodically to see if your interface is working fine or your backend systems are fine. And then finally, we also have custom metrics as a feature which is provided by anypoint monitoring. So we'll focus on the custom metrics part. We'll not look into the other areas of anypoint monitoring today. Okay, so the way custom metrics work is the Mule applications generate metrics data and logs data. And these data are actually collected in your Mule runtime in the as logs, or metric logs as we call it. And these metrics logs actually get shipped to anypoint monitoring repository, which resides in the cloud, by a component called anypoint monitoring agent. And that anypoint monitoring agent usually consumes less than 5% of the CPU assigned to the Mule application. And behind the scene, the AIM agent is actually FileBit. So those of you who are familiar with ELK stack, the AIM agent is actually FileBit. It reads the files, the metric logs, and it ships the information or the data into the anypoint monitoring repository, data repository, which is in the cloud. So there is a connectivity which needs to be established between your on-prem or your Mule runtime, which may be on-prem or somewhere in the cloud, to the anypoint monitoring repository. So you need to set up anypoint monitoring to have custom metrics running or working. Anypoint monitoring agent can be configured with different types of MuleSoft runtime deployments, like Runtime Fabric, CloudUp, or on-prem. For CloudUp, it's pretty easy to enable anypoint monitoring. There is an option or a checkbox saying that enable monitoring and visualizer. You have to enable that, and you have to add an application property, which is mentioned there. Okay, so we'll focus on custom metrics today. So we have to note that custom metrics is only available for users or customers having Titanium subscription. So it's not available for customers who are on Gold and Platinum. It's something only available with customers having Titanium subscription. It allows you to define operational and business metrics. So operational metrics would be the number of requests, events that are being processed, for example. It's of operational, technical in nature, while business metric is the sale you're doing, the product information, and the items you're selling, the count of items, etc. It has a business context to it. Custom metrics can be visualized to different types of dashboards. There is a concept of built-in dashboards and custom dashboards. So we'll go into that, and we'll see how we can configure dashboards. What are the different types of dashboards available later in our presentation. So prerequisites for custom metrics include, as you know, we have to configure anypoint monitoring agent, and custom metrics is available for both Mule 3 and Mule 4. So this is a comparison between the features of anypoint monitoring that are available for gold and platinum subscribers and titanium subscribers. As you can see, custom metrics is available for titanium subscribers. Titanium subscribers also get additional greater storage. It has a greater data retention period available. Log management is available. Alerting is also available for in advance mode for the Titanium subscribers. And you can also monitor connectors as part of Titanium subscription, which is not available in Gold and Platinum. The last point is log and metrics data for anypoint platform, anypoint monitoring is stored in US, East North Virginia, and Germany, Frankfurt. So this is something you need to consider as part of your information security requirements for your organization. In case your InfoSec has a specific requirement of your data to remain within the geographical location that your organization is located in, then you won't be able to use this feature. So you need to consider this factor. For my organization, it's allowed for us if only metric data, no sensitive information is shipped outside the geographical location or the country that the organization resides in, till we have all the access control and penetration test reports available. So MuleSoft provides all the penetration test reports for anypoint monitoring, and it has all the proper access controls in place. So from an InfoSec perspective, you can consider that. Screenshot of the dashboards that are available through anypoint monitoring. This is an example of a set of custom dashboards. I picked this diagram from the MuleSoft documentation. These are different fancy dashboards that you can create. Now moving on to the custom metrics connector. As I said, your Mule application, you define the custom metrics there as part of your Mule application, and you use the custom metrics connector, which helps you publish the metric data from your Mule application into the metric logs, which get generated out of your Mule application. So you have to use custom metrics connector for that purpose. To configure custom metrics connector, you need to have this Maven dependency in your POM. And for troubleshooting the connector, you can use these two packages. You can enable debug mode for these packages, and you'll see the custom metrics debug logs for the connector. So this is a screenshot from a flow where we have used custom metric. So if you observe one thing in this flow, the custom metrics connector is injected as one of the last steps in the flow, both in the error handling section and in the main flow. That is because you want to publish the summarized information after your whole process is done with the execution, basically. And that's how we collect metrics. It's a summarized, consolidated information that you want to collect and reflect in your dashboard. It has a business context to it. That's why you see the custom metrics connector collecting the metrics and publishing as the last step in your flow. Again, this is how you configure the custom metrics. As we know, we have to define dimensions, and we have to define the facts. So dimensions are values like store name, store type, product. And dimensions can only be having alphanumeric values, and only special characters are allowed. Space is not allowed. So you have to be mindful you're not publishing any data with space, that will fail. And facts should be numeric. It is also recommended that you check the throw runtime exception on validation failure checkbox, because if you don't check this checkbox, the connector will suppress if there are any data validation errors, which means your flow will execute successfully, but you won't see any custom metrics data. It will give you a wrong impression that the connector is not working. Basically, it's suppressing the error. So it's always recommended you check this box so you get the error thrown from your Mule application if your metric data is not valid that you're trying to publish. Okay, now we'll move on to the dashboards. There are two types of dashboards available in Anypoint Monitoring through which we can view custom metrics data. One is called a built-in dashboard, the other is called a custom dashboard. So the built-in dashboard provides one chart per metric. So you have to define a metric name. If we go back to the previous slide, the metric name here in this case is order_placed. So for built-in dashboards, there is only one chart that is generated per metric. And you have some basic options there. You can select the facts, you can do some measurements, which are aggregations, you can apply different functions, and you can also select different dimensions. And we'll see an example of built-in dashboard, and we'll also see different types of custom dashboard. The custom dashboards allows us basically to have multiple queries through which you can define different series, and multiple series can be reflected in a single graph, which is not available as part of built-in dashboard. You can only define a single query, and there is only one chart available. But in a custom dashboard, you can create multiple dashboards, and each dashboard can have multiple queries, which can generate different multiple series, which you can reflect in a single dashboard. And there are different types of chart options available. Your chart can be of type graph or a single stat, which will reflect a single series. It can be of tabular category. It will just display a table. And there for headlines or titles, you can use a text type chart. So currently there is a constraint for the custom dashboards. If you use it in advanced mode, where you can actually select a custom metric when you go into the demo, but alerts are currently not available in advanced mode. So you cannot, basically alerts are available when you select basic mode, but in basic mode you cannot actually view custom metrics data. Right, so that's all about the dashboards, and this is how we visualize the built-in and custom dashboards. I don't know if it's too small for you to view, but if you see there, this is on the left-hand side, you have an example of a built-in dashboard. The built-in dashboard is auto-generated. When you select the custom metrics tab from the built-in dashboards option, it gives you some basic features to select the measurements and the facts and some group by options, and it's a single chart available. Whereas in custom dashboard, there are multiple dashboards you can create, or multiple charts you can create, sorry. And in each chart, you can have multiple queries, which will generate different series, which will reflect in a single chart. So custom dashboards gives you much more flexibility, and you can generate charts which give you much more detailed information compared to built-in dashboard. Okay, so we have covered most of the things that are related to custom metrics, and we will go into the demo, because unless you see custom metrics in action, it's very hard to just understand it conceptually. So in this demo today, we are going to use custom metrics to publish some business metrics data as well as some operational metrics. And operational metrics will determine the performance of an asynchronous flow. So we have defined a flow where we publish orders which contain sales data, and we receive the information through an HTTP listener. Basically, we call an API to publish the data into an Amazon SQS queue, and flow 1, which is the synchronous part of the flow, completes after it publishes the message into the SQS. And then there is an asynchronous flow, which actually does the processing of that order. So that part of the flow will pick up that order from SQS. And to add more complexity into the flow, what we have done, we have put a DynamoDB lookup for the product and store. So using the product name, it looks up for the unit price, and then it will look up for the store location using the store name, just to add complexity into the flow. And finally, it will create an order into another DynamoDB table. And after the whole processing is done, at the end of the flow, which is usually an usual practice, at the end of the flow, we'll try to publish the custom metrics, which will have information about the order, which will include different types of dimensions like the store name, the product being sold, etc. I'll show the code, and some facts as well, the number of items we are selling, or the total price of the sales price, which indicates the revenue against that order. And we'll also capture the time taken, which means we'll capture the timestamp at the beginning of the flow and before we publish the custom metrics. It is an indication of how long this asynchronous flow will take to execute. And then finally, we'll publish that metric data. And then we'll use different dashboards to view that data. Right? So the components used for the demo are Mule version 4.3.0. It is the latest version. We use Mule. I have used Mule soft runtime fabric for the demo. The custom metrics connector latest version is used, and AWS DynamoDB and SQS services have been used. Okay, so let's go into the Mule application first, just to see what we have done. So as I mentioned, we take the order as input and we put it or publish it into the SQS queue. And then we have a flow which picks up that order message, and then it processes it. It looks up for the unit price for the product. It looks up for the store location based on the store name. And I put some random delay just to add some time into the execution. Finally, we create an order into the DynamoDB, and the sales metrics is published as the last step. This is the custom metric. Before we go into the dashboards or we execute the Mule flow. So as I said, the dimensions, these are dimensions. The name of the metric is sales underscore metric. The dimensions are order ID, product name, store location. These are different facts we are publishing. So as you can see, count is the measurement of the weightage of the transaction. So this is just processing one order, so the count is just one. Number of items that are processed as part of the order, that's a fact, and we're publishing it as the fact name is items. Total price indicates the revenue, and the time taken, which is calculated in milliseconds and published as part of the custom metrics. So it is not only publishing business metrics, but it's also publishing some operational metrics like the time taken. And I've checked the throw runtime exception box as I recommended. Okay, so let's execute this flow. So to execute this flow, what basically I've done, I will use JMeter, and I will randomly generate order IDs, and I will pick up the store names which I've actually collected in a store's local CSV, and I'll collect the product names from a local CSV, and I'll randomly generate 5 to 10 items for each of the orders, and I'll publish around 1,000 orders. So we'll try to process 1,000 orders through our Mule flow. So I'll start this transaction. I'll start this batch, and then we'll go into the dashboards and see the data. Okay. So as you can see, it has started to publish. So already it has published up to 500, and the average time taken is 100 milliseconds or so, because basically we are invoking an API which immediately responds to us within 100 milliseconds or so. So it was pretty easy to publish all the 1,000 messages. But then what's happening behind the scene is that we have an Amazon queue in which all these messages are getting accumulated. And then we have a DynamoDB table where these orders are getting created. And this is the table where this asynchronous flow is getting executed, and that part of the flow actually creates the orders, right? So as you can see, it gives you an option to see the live count. See, if I scan it, 53 orders got created. Okay, so let's see the built-in dashboard. So this is the built-in dashboard. As I said, the built-in dashboard will have a heading called sales underscore metric. This is the metric name. So one chart per metric. This is all that's available as part of built-in dashboards. And I put it in auto refresh mode. So still, okay, the metric data has started to come in. So what I've selected here in the built-in dashboard, I've selected the items.count, the number of items that have been sold as part of the sales order processing. And I've grouped by product name. So basically it is generating a series for each product. So this will indicate the number of items sold for different product. For example, these are the different products for which I'm making the sale. So you can see running shoes, 9 running shoes have been sold, 8 casual jeans have been sold, and this grouping is usually done per minute by default. But when you create charts in advanced mode, you can group by 5 minutes or 10 minutes. So that's configurable when you do a grouping in advanced mode. Okay. So as you can see, the metrics data has started to come in, and you can see over a period of time how your sales metrics is displayed in a built-in dashboard. But then I've also created a custom metrics, custom dashboard, where there are multiple charts I've created of different type. So we'll go through each one of them. The first one is just the heading. It supports, this is just a picture that I've selected from Google Photos, and it supports HTML. So as you can see, it supports HTML, and it's a public link of an image that I've selected. This is a text type chart, and this displays. Usually, this can be used for showing titles. And we'll go back to the dashboard. And this is the dashboard where we are actually capturing the performance of the asynchronous flow. So as you can see, there are, for this grouping, around 49 orders got processed with an average processing time of 2.883 seconds. And this is collected, or information is displayed from the custom metrics data, because we are publishing the time taken. And it is grouped by every minute. It is grouped by every minute to display it as a series. Then in the next minute, you can see 58 orders got processed with an average processing time of 2.986. And likewise. So over a period of time, you will be able to visualize the number of orders you're processing every minute and the average time it is taking to process the orders. If there is any performance bottleneck, it will show a spike. And you can select individual series if you want to see only the graph for that particular series. But as I said, in advanced mode, you can display multiple series, each having a different query. We'll go into the configurations to see how this query is configured and displayed. If you unselect this one, it will display multiple series in the same graph. And you can configure different visual aspects of it to define the different color coding and the type of graph you want to display. So let's go into the performance monitoring dashboard and see how we have configured it. Okay, so as I said, you have to select the advanced mode, and then you select from which type of metric you want to do the query. You can select custom metrics from the repository of custom metrics. Then you apply other criteria like the environment ID, the org ID, and then the application name, the metric name. And then you define the facts that you want to display as a series. So here, the first query, it is a count.sum, because we want to summarize the number of orders. and group by is based on time, and it is grouping every minute. So an alias is just the name that is displayed here, the name of the series. So the first query, which is represented by this blue section, is the count of order per minute. The second query is actually the time taken, the total time taken, but the grouping is done based on the min function, which means it will not be the sum, it will be the average of the sum. So that's why it is showing an average time taken for processing a certain number of orders. And this particular chart shows us the average processing time. It is an indication of the performance of the asynchronous flow, which is actually performing the order processing. Okay, so this is the one of the charts that we have configured in the custom dashboard. The other chart, if you see, is an item sold per store, right? So as you can see, it groups based on the store name, and it displays the number of items which are sold by each of these stores over a period of time. And if you select the individual ones, it will display the series for that particular store. It is the same type of dashboard as this one, only the visual is different, because here it connects using the line and here it doesn't. But if you go and configure it in the visual section, you have that option. So you can either select a line which will join these dots. If you unselect it, it will not join the dots. If you select bars, it will show bars. So it has different visual effects, right? Okay, we'll go to the chart, the tabular chart now, and see how we have configured the tabular chart. As you can see, the orders are still getting processed and the matrix data is coming through. This is another type of chart, which is of type table. In this chart, we have tried to display the number of items sold per product. So we tried to answer different questions. So this is where custom metrics help. It helps us answer different questions for the business and reflect it in different types of charts. So this is a chart over a period of time. It is showing how many items are sold per product. We have defined different color coding for different thresholds. For example, above 100 is a deep red, for example, below 60 or 70 it's blue, and above 70 it's orange. So as you can see, every minute the number of items that are being sold per product. So if you go and configure this particular chart, as you can see, there is again in advanced mode, you can do some basic queries like you can select item.sum and apply the function sum, which means it calculates the total number of items. And then you can group by time, and to select a particular dimension, it will display in the column. You use a function called tag. The documentation is there in the MuleSoft docs, and you can go through different functions you can use while writing queries for defining your charts. So if you use the function tag, you can actually select one of the dimensions to display in the column, and to display the name of that column with the value of that particular dimension, you have to use this syntax $tag underscore the name of the dimension. And that's why you can see the name of the column is actually the value of that particular dimension, which is the name of the product. And then the data which is reflecting here is actually coming from the fact, which is where we have defined items. We have done a sum of items to display over a period of time. So this is another type of chart that we can define. This is of table type. Okay. Now Finally, we'll go into the last type of chart, which is called a single stat. So in the single stat, you can define only one series. So here, if you see, we call it a single stat revenue per location, which means we are only calculating the revenue, total revenue, and selecting the revenue for a specific location. And we have defined some thresholds and limits. So here the threshold is defined 30,000, 60,000, and 100,000. Different thresholds and different color coding. So since it's exceeded 30,000, I've defined a color coding as orange for anything above 30,000. And anything below 30,000, we have defined red, and above 60,000, it will be green. So still the revenue is collected. As you can see, Brisbane is one of the locations, Sydney is another location, Melbourne is other. Brisbane is doing the best sell, and that's why the revenue is showing quite high for Brisbane. Let's go and see how we actually define the single stat type of chart. This is the last one. In the single stat, you actually can select a single series, as I said, and that's why we, apart from the other general criteria, we have also defined the store location equals to Brisbane. If you don't put this criteria, then there will be multiple store locations for which the metrics will come in, which can be which will not indicate anything. It will indicate probably total revenue irrespective of location, but we are trying to answer the question, what's the revenue per location, what's the revenue for specific locations. That's why we put the criteria store location is the Brisbane. And then we have selected the fact total price, which indicates the revenue. And then, as I said, if you want to select a particular dimension, we have to select using a function called tag. And for the tag, we have selected the field called store location because we want to calculate the total revenue per location. But this is a single series, so we have actually filtered out based on the store location value, which is we want to see the revenue for Brisbane. And then we display the store location using this syntax, $tag underscore store name. And that's why it's showing the revenue for Brisbane only. So this is another type of chart. Okay, so let's see. Orders got processed. 775 orders got processed. We're still left with 225 orders to get processed, and that's why you see the custom metrics dashboard is showing the data in real time. The data is still coming through, and you can see it being displayed in real time. And see, you can observe the performance of the asynchronous part of the flow that we have tried to monitor, and you can see the average processing time is around 2.9 to 3 seconds, 3.1 second. And this is giving us full visibility of an operational metrics as well as other business metrics data. And we have consolidated everything and published the whole metrics data through a custom metrics called sales underscore metric. And we have displayed that using different charts in this particular custom dashboard. So that's all we had for the demo today. We still have few orders which are getting processed. But yeah, there's like 196 orders yet to be processed. And yeah, around 160 or more to be processed. Okay, so while they get processed, we'll probably go into the question answer session. Sorry.
Hi, Susmit. Did you have a wrap up, or are you happy for me to ask the questions that have come so far?
Yes, yeah, if you can ask the questions on the behalf of the attendees, that will be
sure. All right. So I think a reasonably simple one to start off with.
Yeah.
Are custom metrics logs different from application logs?
Yeah, so logs are detailed information which helps you troubleshoot your application or have detailed trace of your application. Metrics is a consolidated data. So it's used for different purpose, basically.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, I think they do serve very different purposes. And I'd say application logs they're practically mandatory, whereas custom metrics are probably more of a nice to have.
You can perform analytics on your logs as well. But this is just consolidated information that is stored in a different repository, and you have out-of-the-box features to do analytics on it. So you don't need to put much effort on doing summarizing your logs and performing complex functions to derive the information from your logs.
Great, thank you. So the next question is, how are we making the data represented as a table, and can we have both at the same time? So I think this goes to the point where you were showing the tabular data, and maybe just how that works in terms of configuring behind the scenes, if you haven't showed it already.
I have showed it.
Yeah.
So when you create a chart, for example, this three dots, if you click, it gives you add a widget, and that's when you can select either a single stat graph, a table type, or a text type. So when you select table type, it actually generates a tabular representation of the chart.
Excellent. Thank you very much. If anyone does have further questions, please use the Q&A link that I've posted. I do have some more questions in the chat. So the next question is, can we have a look at the out-of-the-box dashboards as a comparison for this type of data? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, the out-of-the-box dashboard is this one, the built-in dashboard.
Yeah.
It only has a single chart per metric, and it gives you some basic option, like you can do an aggregation and you can select one measurement, which is a fact, and you can group by one of the dimensions to display the graph. Basically, this is an example of built-in dashboard.
Excellent. Thank you very much. The next question is, how is this different from ELK monitoring?
So this is the endpoint monitoring is an offering from MuleSoft. It has log management and other features, alerting and custom dashboards, built-in dashboards, and other metrics that are generated, or standard metrics that are generated out of the MuleSoft applications. The ELK would be a custom solution. So you need to build everything that you see out of the box being already provided as part of endpoint monitoring. That's the only difference, that you can always do stuff through ELK, but that will be a fully customized solution.
Indeed, I think that's well described. Yeah, it's a choice between having a platform that does it already versus having to build your own.
It's ready to use, basically.
Great. And the next question is it possible to export the custom metrics dashboards and charts as a PDF or JPEG?
So if you click these three dots, it gives you an option to export the data as CSV, but nothing more than that.
Thank you. All right. I think that leaves. I think that's all the questions we have so far. Just as a guess on a high level, if you haven't commented on this already, Susmit, how do you find these dashboards being used within the organization outside of the demo context that you shared?
Yeah, these are quite useful, as I said, both from operational perspective as well as the business perspective. And for our organization, we basically use a lot of legacy systems where the non-functional requirements are not clear to anybody during the requirements analysis phase. And when we set up these dashboards, there's a lot of assumptions being made when we consider the non-functional requirements while doing designing for our integration solutions. And then we implement it, and when we visualize the metrics data, that's when we get to know the actual number of transactions being processed, or the type of different types of scenarios which are applicable, and different types of events that are being processed, and the counts, or the volumetrics, basically, which are applicable for different scenarios. So this kind of information is only can only be visualized or captured through custom metrics, I believe. That's where we have benefited.
Excellent. That's really, really nice to hear. All right, there's lots of comments coming in the chat in terms of thanking you for your great presentation and the demo. So once again, thank you for all of the effort you've put into this and taking the time to share it with us today. As always, you set a very high standard in the presentations that you do.
It has processed all the orders. So just to confirm, if you see, the SQS is 0 and the live count should be 1,000. Yeah. So
brilliant.
While we were doing a Q&A, it processed all the orders. Yeah.
Perfectly executed demo.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right. So we are reaching the top of the hour. So Smith, were there any other comments before I can wrap up?
I just want to thank everyone for joining from different parts of the world, different time zones. So thanks
Excellent.
everyone for joining.
All right. So thank you very much, Susmit, once again for your presentation. So just as a reminder, we will be publishing the slides and the recording in a few hours. So hopefully by this time tomorrow, it will be available on the Meetup page. So you can look forward to that. If you found this presentation useful, I have two requests from you as an audience. One is to leave feedback on the feedback survey, which will be sent out very soon. And the second is to share it with someone you know who is a MuleSoft practitioner. So whether it's in your own team or someone else in the community, please share this knowledge because we want as many people to know about the features that are in the platform, as well as to share the knowledge in the community as well. If you yourself are interested in contributing to a presentation in the future, you can contact the organizer on the Meetup page, or you can browse on the Meetup site and say, I want to speak at a Meetup as well. We're always looking for great presenters to contribute. So with that, thank you very much for your attention and your participation today, and we look forward to having you at the next session. Have a safe and wonderful day ahead.
Thanks everyone.